Deep within the earth, two explorers set out on journeys that would take them to the limits of human endurance. One, a cave diver, descended into the shadows of a vast underwater cavern, his tank his only lifeline. But when a sudden leak left him without air, he was forced to confront the darkness, the cold, and the depths with nothing but his wits to survive. Meanwhile, in a separate remote cave system, another adventurer ventured deep into a passage so secluded, the chill of its waters was unlike anything he'd ever encountered. As he pressed forward, he stumbled upon a freezing current, its flow so intense that it slowly numbed him to the point of immobility. Will they make it out? Or will the cave claim their lives? Stay with us as we delve into these chilling stories. Deep in southern China's wild countryside lies a mysterious and awe-inspiring place that combines stunning beauty with deadly peril. The South China Karst stretches across 500,000 square kilometers, containing some of Earth's most complex cave networks. Time and water have sculpted these limestone formations over millions of years into more than just geological wonders. They serve as doorways into a hidden underground realm that draws thrill seekers, researchers, and bold adventurers. Within this massive karst landscape sits one of its darkest secrets, Judan Cave, an underwater maze so treacherous and intricate that people call it Asia's underwater Everest. The cave's shadowy passages, filled with endless twists and bottomless depths, have claimed the lives of expert divers. Still, Judan's deadly reputation fails to deter explorers who burn with desire to unlock its mysteries. Judan Cave welcomes visitors with a misleading entrance, a giant vertical opening named the Skylight. Sunbeams pierce through thick forest branches, lighting up the transparent waters underneath. The scene appears peaceful and enchanting, completely hiding the lethal depths below. This stunning feature attracts photographers and drone operators, but experienced divers see it as nature's warning sign. Diving past the Skylight means entering a realm where even tiny errors prove fatal and survival demands absolute perfection. Wang Dao and Wang Yang grew up in a tiny village near the South China Karst, where Judan Cave's stories captured their young minds. Local people whispered about the cave, sharing tales of brave explorers who ventured in but never emerged. The boys couldn't resist Judan's mysterious pull, spending their childhood roaming nearby woods and imagining the thrilling adventures waiting in the depths. Their fascination evolved into complete dedication as they matured. They started diving training, determined to master Judan one day. They spent years developing their abilities, tackling increasingly difficult dive sites. They learned about decompression science, became experts with advanced diving gear, and sought knowledge from experienced cave divers. Their mission remained crystal clear. They would explore Judan Cave and live to share an unprecedented tale. By 2014, Wang Dao and Wang Yang had transformed into skilled professionals with extensive diving experience. They felt ready to face Judan Cave's greatest challenge, the unmapped sections lying beyond 160 meters deep. Such extreme depths demanded more than just technical skill. The intense pressure at these depths threatens both body and mind. The morning sun blazed across the Skylight as Wang Dao and Wang Yang stood at its edge, their diving equipment shining brightly. Their support diver, Zhou Pei, checked the guide ropes one final time. The air crackled with intense energy. This dive would push them beyond normal human limits, testing every skill they had mastered. They plunged into the water without hesitation, leaving the surface world behind. The initial descent felt peaceful. Sunlight pierced the crystal clear water, lighting up the cave walls in golden hues. Massive rock formations surrounded them in breathtaking beauty. Enormous stalactites dangled overhead like nature's chandeliers. The stunning view almost made them forget the deadly challenges waiting below. The deeper they went, darkness started closing in. The water turned ice cold, and the walls squeezed tighter around them. Their visibility dropped dramatically, forcing them to rely on their powerful lights. Only their rhythmic breathing broke the deep silence, constantly reminding them of their limited air supply. Trouble struck at 150 meters when Wang Yang's air tank started leaking. Precious air bubbles escaped into the water, but his extensive training kicked in. He fixed the leak swiftly and calmly, demonstrating how thin the line between survival and disaster runs in cave diving. The team pushed forward despite this scary moment. They switched to backup air tanks and continued descending until they reached their target, 164 meters deep. Very few divers had ever ventured this far into Judan's depths. They secured their guide rope firmly, marking their historic achievement, before moving toward unexplored passages. The sight that greeted them left them stunned. An enormous chamber opened up, its walls covered in bizarre formations, unlike anything they'd seen before. The scene felt completely alien, like stepping into an ancient world frozen in time. The team's amazement quickly turned to dread when their guide rope suddenly went loose. The vital lifeline that marked their path to safety had broken free from its anchor. They found themselves stranded in Judan's depths with no clear way back. Fear threatened to overwhelm them as reality sank in. Without the rope, navigating the maze-like passages seemed impossible. Every direction looked identical, just endless darkness broken by their light beams. But their years of rigorous training prepared them for such life-threatening situations. They started searching methodically for the lost rope, running their hands along the rocky walls, fighting to stay alive in the depths of Judan. After endless searching, they spotted the rope swaying in the dark water. This small victory brought little comfort. Their real battle had just begun. Wang Dao suddenly got stuck beneath a sharp rock outcrop, the tight cave walls preventing any movement. The situation turned desperate fast. Wang Dao's air levels dropped dangerously low as he struggled against the rocks. His friend Wang Yang immediately shared his own air supply, but they both knew this solution wouldn't last long. The crushing pressure at this depth made every move painfully slow, draining their precious air even faster. Wang Yang barely made it to the surface, his body completely drained and suffering from the bends. The rescue team launched an immediate search for Wang Dao, but found nothing. Judan Cave had taken another life into its depths, leaving everyone with heavy hearts and unanswered questions. The loss crushed Wang Yang completely. Though he survived physically, the emotional scars cut deep. The dark passages of Judan and those final moments with his friend would haunt his thoughts forever. Judan Cave stands today as a powerful reminder of human courage and nature's raw force. Adventurers still come from everywhere, drawn by its mysteries. But the cave shows no mercy to those who enter. Every diver knows the deadly risks that wait in its depths. The cave's pull remains strong even now. Its incredible beauty and endless secrets draw people in. But experienced divers know the truth. Judan punishes every mistake harshly. Success and disaster balance on a knife's edge here, where even the bravest can fall. In Georgia's Gagra Mountains, 4 of the world's deepest caves hide. The Veryovkina Cave stands out, not just for its depth, but for how hard it is to explore. It's so tricky that teams usually spend months planning before they go in. Since its discovery in 1968, no one has ever tried to go solo. It's not just a bad idea, it's unheard of. Exploring Veryovkina is a team job. The cave has 6 camps where explorers can rest and eat. But no matter how you slice it, the 250-foot drop is tough. It takes about 3 or 4 days to go down and the same to climb back up. Enter Sergei Kosev, a 37-year-old from Russia's Voloy-Soy district. He wasn't your typical daredevil, but he loved adventure. He first heard about Veryovkina Cave in his village. The last team to go there was in September 2018. They were Russian cavers from the Perovo-Spaleo team. They made it down 6,900 feet before a flood forced them to turn back. But Sergei, who had just started caving as a hobby, wasn't scared. If anything, he was curious. Sergei needed a challenge. He was going through a bit of a life crisis, looking for something to give his life meaning. The idea of exploring Veryovkina Cave seemed perfect. It was a chance to push himself to the limit. For months, Sergei studied the cave, looked at maps, and got ready. He was careful in his planning, but there was one big problem. He was going alone. On Halloween night, 2020, Sergei casually told his wife he was going on a trip to the mountains the next day. He didn't say much, just that he was looking for the meaning of life and would be back soon. On November 1st, he got in his car and drove to Abkhazia, Georgia. Most groups get official permits to explore Veryovkina, but Sergei skipped that step. He was going in secretly, using maps and info he found online from past trips. Sergei reached the cave's entrance and saw a big dark hole in the ground. The rocky cliffs around it made it look scary. He couldn't see much inside, just a deep, dark pit. But Sergei wasn't scared. He was ready with his camo overalls, hiking boots, and climbing gear. He tied a rope to a strong rock and started going down. The first 1,300 feet were really hard. Sergei knew he had to be careful. It was mostly straight down, but he also had to crawl through tight spaces and go around big rocks. Sometimes, he had to swim through cold, muddy water in deep holes. After hours of hard work, he made it to the first rest stop at 1,247 feet. Tired but happy, Sergei took a break. His phone said he was at Camp 1300. He changed his wet clothes and ate some food. He was surprised to find stuff left by the Perovo Spaleo team. They had to leave things behind because of the flood, so Sergei used what he could. After resting, Sergei kept going. His next stop was Camp 600, 1,969 feet from the top. This part was easier, but he still had to deal with tight spaces, slippery climbs, and more cold, muddy water. When he got to Camp 600, he was really happy. This camp had more stuff, like cooking gas, food, and even a makeshift toilet. Best of all, there were sleeping bags, so Sergei could get some good sleep. Even though he could have kept going down, Sergei stayed at Camp 600 for a whole week. No one knows why he waited so long. Maybe he was getting used to the cold, or maybe he needed more time to get ready in his head. Whatever the reason, after a week of rest, Sergei was ready to go to Camp 1000, which was 3,280 feet from the surface. As Sergei went deeper into the cave, he started feeling really cold. Around 2,600 feet down, it got super chilly, between 4 and 7 degrees Celsius, and very damp. Without a wetsuit to keep him warm in the cold water flowing through the cave, Sergei was in trouble. He could have gone back to get warmer clothes, but he had a big problem. He forgot his clamps and stirrups, which he needed to climb back up. He had no choice but to keep going down. Feeling less hopeful, Sergei pushed onto Camp 1000, fighting the cold all the way. When he got there, he thought he might find some gear to help him climb back up. But after looking around, he found nothing. No wetsuit, no stirrups, nothing at all. Tired and upset, he fell down, knowing he was stuck. His only hope was to make it to the next camp at 4,430 feet, but he was getting weaker fast. As Sergei went past 3,600 feet, the freezing water became too much. His body was shaking a lot and he could barely hold the rope. By the time he reached 3,600 feet, he couldn't go on. He couldn't move his hands or legs, and his body was giving up. He was too cold, and Sergei knew he was dying. In his last moments, he let go of the rope and fell into a deep sleep, never to wake up again. Sergei's wife, used to his solo trips, didn't report him missing for weeks. 9 months later, in August 2021, some cave explorers found a rope going into Veryovkina Cave. Worried that someone might use the rope by mistake, they followed it down and found Sergei's body. They used his phone to confirm who he was through an app for missing people. Getting Sergei's body out of the deep cave was really hard. It took 100 climbers to do it, but when they saw how deep and tricky the cave was, they knew they couldn't just pull his body up in one piece. With his wife's okay, they had to cut up his body and bring it up bit by bit. After days of work, they finally brought Sergei's remains to the surface on August 16th, 2021. It was a sad end to an adventure that Sergei hoped would give his life new meaning. Instead, it showed how dangerous extreme exploring can be, especially when done alone.